education. I'm a college dropout, and I don't have a single interesting theological thought. I really don't. But every single thing I know about Jesus that I haven't shoehorned into any of the earlier books, I've shoehorned into this. There's a lot of church stuff and a lot of begging prayers. You know, I always forget that that we don't need to beg, that we're heard before we speak, and that we're loved and chosen no matter what we've done or thought. And that we're getting 100% of the time we're saved. I really, really did not want to be a Christian when I grew up. My father was the child of Presbyterian missionaries in Tokyo, some of you know from my earlier stuff, and he hated Christians. I mean, he and my mom were very cultured and very brilliant, very erudite, but their position was that if you believed in God, it just sort of spoke of a desperation and ignorance. And my father liked all the I wrote a piece in the current Oprah about how I came from a family of atheists, how I found the Catholics down the street, how I found the Christian Scientists and grew up around Jesus. But I didn't want to be a Jesus person, but I always believed in God. I always believed when I prayed that someone heard. Tim, you can sit right here. My caseworker, Tim. He's been driving me around and providing for me all day. The Clif Bars and the police, because I mailed all my warm clothes home. So anyway, I just wanted there to be a path for me that would not be horrifying to my father, because he was my most important person until Sam and now Jax. And then, as some of you know from Traveling Mercies, I felt like, well, I knew that I was going to crash. I was crashing and burning with alcohol, and I was waking up sick every morning. And I know a lot of you, I know a number of you are sober, and I love hearing your sobriety dates. Mine is July 7th, 1986, and in July of 1985, and those of you who are sober know what kind of shape I was in. All I had zero money. I had a $300 a month rent. I had this crummy little, like, Charlie Brown bike. And I used to go to the flea market when I was hungover, because I really like greasy food if I've been drinking. And from the flea market at Marin City, which is kind of a ghetto in Marin County, which is very affluent, I could hear this music wafting out of this ramshackle church with this one cruddy waiting for Godot tree in front of it. And there's an acronym for God it's the gift of desperation. And because I had no more good ideas, I'd hear this music, and it was like in the cartoons when the wife, it's always the wife because this is 50s and early 60s, so there's like no consciousness. But so the wife builds a cherry pie, bakes a cherry pie and puts it on the sill. And then she leaves, don't eat the pie, honey. And then the husband, who's always a slacker because the women's movement hasn't happened yet and no one has any consciousness. And the man is always overweight and he's on his Barca lounger. And then the wife's aromatic cherry pie smell comes around, wafting, and it taps him on the chest, right? And then he wakes up, and then he follows it, then he eats it, then he gets in trouble. Very comical, the angry wife, right? So, but that was how Jesus got me. It was like a smell, an aroma of cherry, of something baking that I could smell. And I got up and kind of walked, and it walked over. And I sat down in this church, and for those of you who are ministers or working in church or with social groups of any kind that are available to very damaged people like I was, these people, their secret was they didn't hassle me. They didn't try to get me to come back. They didn't try to get me to make a deal with them. And the most important thing is they didn't threaten, like, the home visit. They didn't get my name. They let me be. And that is unbelievable. That is grace. If they had said they wanted to come by and visit me, I seriously would have joined the government witness protection. Because I just didn't need that. I didn't need crowded. I didn't need to try to do anything on anybody else's time or timeline or curriculum. I just needed a place where I could sit for an hour and a half on Sundays, and I didn't go every Sunday. I was bulimic. I mean, I was just a mess. And then I started going, and then as I wrote about in Traveling Mercies, I just felt like Jesus, I just felt like he was going to get me in a kind of spooky way. And then it was just, it would be just ridiculous to try to get away. I wrote about that it was like a little stray cat following me, and I was kind of kicking at it. No, and you can't feed a little stray cat, right? Or all of a sudden you own a cat, you have a cat. So I tried not to feed him, and then finally, I couldn't shake this feeling. And I had an experience, and I said, fine, like sort of bitterly. And then I started going to church, and about 6 months later I got sober, and then I got baptized in the church. So, and Sam was baptized at St. Andrew, and Jax, we want to get baptized there, but Amy's mother's from Chicago, and her grandmother, who she adores, Jessie, was Catholic, so there's this kind of tug of war, and I feel that I'm right, because I always feel that I'm right, and that if I weren't right, I would think something else, which would then be the thing that was right. So, but then, we ask ourselves in recovery, would I rather be right or happy? And, I hate that question. I don't want to be happy. So that's my church, and that's my Jesus, and I don't understand anything. And I read a lot I love C.S. Lewis. Do you all know Dr. I think it's Gregory Boyle, who wrote Tattoos on the, is it Gregory? Boyle.
That's Boyle.
Uh-oh, things are getting ugly. Like Occupy Wall Street here. I think it's Gregory. It's in a bookstore. And is it Boyle? Boyle. He wrote Tattoos on the Heart. It's about opening up space for the gang people in L.A. and offering them a way in, a way out of that, a way in, a way if you want to get the tattoos removed, a way if you want to learn a job. Starts with the men, and then it moves on to the women and the girls and the boys. And that's a Jesus book after my own heart. I love Father Martin. I love Thomas Merton. I love Denise Levertov. She wrote her books about Christianity, about Jesus and Mary were life-changing for me. So that's my Jesus story. Like Jesus is, I've heard in recovery people say, figured out is not a good slogan. And so I used to get hassled a lot more on tour because they'd send me to the South more often. And the people would call me on radio stations to announce that I was going to rot for all eternity and stuff because I'm so passionately pro-women and pro-gay and pro-immigrant, pro-everybody that Jesus would just draw very but in the South, you get people with these beautiful accents. Well, hi, well, I guess you'll think it's pretty witty when you're rotting in hell for all. But it's just, you can be next. It's just kind of dropped off, and now I am like a very Jesus-y girl. I wear, somebody gave me a prayer beads from Jerusalem the other day with a little cross on them, and I'm entirely about Jesus. I'm a terrible Christian, but I'm so in love with him, and that's what I do. And I take care of children. I'm a Sunday school teacher, and you can be second after her. And that's all I know. So, yes.